Hey, Facebook Live. It's Monday, 8:30, so I'm Keyla Kirton from Keyla Kirton Consulting. And every Monday at 8:30, I take some time out to just share some of my wisdom. I am a nonprofit consultant. I'm also an HR professional, HR leader, and I love to answer questions. But this particular series, these past 3 weeks, have been dedicated to talking about executive boards on nonprofit organizations. So that could be a community organization, it could be a government organization, religious organization. And to talk more about the religious organizations, we have Mr. Alexander Kirton, one of my favorite pastor leaders, and my favorite people, just period. I'm biased, but I think he's an awesome leader, so he's going to be joining me today.
Yes.
Okay. First, let's kind of give people some time to join us. But in the meantime, we will continue. These posts will be recorded, so you can watch it during the week. And I do appreciate the questions that I've received and appreciate the feedback that I've gotten so far. Really excited and grateful that the information that you guys are receiving is helpful. So Alex, I want to just start just sort of interviewing you a little bit. Tell me about when you first considered yourself a leader. When did you realize that you were a leader in any capacity? What was your first leadership role?
I think first major leadership role was playing for a church.
Mm-hmm.
When everything kind of fell on my lap as far as to carry the service and plan the music and carry the whole worship service. So that was kind of the first really major leadership role that I can think back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you, when you first had to do it, it was your first time, so you didn't have experience. So how did you pull yourself up and get the gumption to take this role on, and how did you do the first time? How good of a leader were you?
Well, I think with any leader you have to observe
Mm-hmm.
and see the process involved with the past leaders,
Yeah.
and to see how you can assimilate into what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely, my first experience was not me just playing, it was before just watching and seeing the dynamics of the person in charge, to what it required physically, emotionally, spiritually, to be successful in that leadership role.
Awesome. And I think that's a great lesson there, that great leaders are always observing. We've talked about executive boards, and a lot of times I get people that join an executive board, and that's their first leadership experience. They've never had the opportunity to be on a board. They've never had to lead an initiative. They never had to sit in a strategic planning session. They never had to talk about managing a budget. So when you are having these folks come on to your board, or their advisors, or even if it's family members, right, that you're having a round table. We've done that a few times, where it's just family members who love our vision, who believe in us, and they're at the table, and they're leaders. It's very important that we assess the leadership capability of these folks, and that we understand that, hey, this is a person who's passionate about leadership. This is a person that's observed, that has been very observant, and is eager and excited to have some hands-on experience. And I think those people are just as equally as great as someone with leadership experience, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's very important that you be able to catch the vision of the leader and also know how to systematically advance it, not on your terms, but in terms of the speed of the organization. Oftentimes, people come in with these grand ideas and ambitions which don't align to the core values, to the mission, to the vision of the organization, and they hit all kind of roadblocks because they don't understand that change takes time, and change has to be incremental.
It's true.
It also has to be in the timing of the existing leader.
That's right.
So if you're not in sync, if you're not in line with that, then tension, trouble, difficulty can occur. So it's very important to understand the pulse and of the leader that you're under, and understand the skill set of each person and how you should work together, and how each member of your board should complement each other.
Yeah.
You should not be all the same skill set, because that creates challenges. You're going to be very limited. Also, it's important to be not the smartest person in the room.
Yes.
To be surrounded with other people with other skill sets and different thinking, so that it can take your thinking to another level, and also take the organization as a whole by brainstorming together to another level.
Absolutely. So I have to tell you, as a consultant myself, and as a person who's very passionate about leadership, husband and wife, right? We've worked together on many projects. We've worked and brought churches and reformed churches, revitalized several churches in New York. Then we had a church plant that we attempted here in Anna as well. So we've had a lot of, and we also actually, when we were dating, we were youth leaders together, co-youth leaders, which, okay, I have to tell y'all, I have to snitch on you. I have to snitch on you. He only did it because of me, because he was like, I am not a youth leader. I don't have any interest in it. But he was so awesome. He was so good. But he only did it because it was something that I was very passionate about. So he would just kind of come along, and then eventually he was like, oh, we got to do this. We got to plan. We got to get the pizza. But anyway, we've had to work together. And I have to say, working with Alex and both of us having this strong leadership sense, and both of us being firstborn children, right? So we kind of have that certain type of personality. We want things done a certain way. It's really cool to see how he's been able to manage me as a fellow leader, right? He's been able to manage me and manage my skill set, which I think a lot of times chair people of the board, so chairman, chairwoman of the board, we sort of skip over that skill set. That as the chair of the board, you have to manage those resources, those people resources, right? You have to manage those relationships. And Alex was always very intentional to manage our personal relationship and our professional relationship, and say, hey, you're really strong here, and I need you here. I need you wearing this hat. So although you can wear this hat and that hat and that hat, Keyla, I need you to wear this hat. I need you to focus your attention here. And we were, and sometimes I agreed, sometimes I didn't agree, right? Because I know some things too about leadership. But at the end of the day, we agreed that whoever was in charge of the project, that person led the helm. So if Alex is the pastor and he's in charge and he needs me here, then I'm going to be here. So it's not that we're 50-50 or that we're husband and wife, and we don't bring that to our work, right? We don't bring that to ministry. We don't. We have an understanding that he's the senior pastor. If I'm or if I'm an associate pastor or whatever my role is in the situation, right? That if he's saying strategically, this is what I see and this is what I need from you, then this is the role that I'm going to play. And I'll tell you what, we don't lose anything. I'm not going to be less of a leader because I'm submitting or following that vision, just like you guys aren't going to be less leaders if you follow that director's vision, that president's vision. But in fact, it allowed me to focus my efforts and and actually see something succeed, which I think when you have that strategic seat as the big vision, the bird's eye view leader, you can see components of a task that me being passionate and kind of sitting in that board seat that I can't see, and it's not that I don't have that capability to see, but that's just not my role at the time. And I think, sometimes we get into a lot of challenge and issues and interpersonal issues for no reason, because we really think that we're bringing all of ourselves to this role. You know, I'm the treasurer, I'm bringing, you know, Kayla, who's a this and who has a master's in that and who's done this. But no, sister, or no, brother, when you're asked to be on a board, they're asking you to be on the board to fulfill a very specific role. And that role may change, and for you to grow, even as a board member, because being a member of a board is big business too. You know, you start with nonprofits, but on the corporate level, it's a very important position. So if you're growing and developing this skill to collaborate with other leaders, to collaborate to make something happen and to make positive change that's going to impact a lot of people, you have to be able to focus your skill set where it's needed and show results. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay. Would you like to say anything about our just working together and that delineation when you have like board members that are family members and how to manage them? Because I know one of my clients that I can think of right now, they have a husband, wife, sometimes other relatives, extended relatives that are on the board. So how would you advise them to manage those types of situations?
Well, I think one, you have to take off the family hat when you come into the boardroom, and you have to understand the role that you're playing. Because I think then what we have is sometimes enmeshment, or we have you know, mixed signals, misunderstanding. We think we can pull the family card when it's not about a family member. It's about an organization. It's about a mission. It's about a vision that has to be fulfilled by role players. And if you understand that everyone has a role and it has something to do with your association in terms of family or friends, as a way to get some kind of an advantage, or to not have accountability, or to get a pass, or to get some kind of experience, or try to get some kind of edge, then that's where the big challenges come. So I tell people that, you know, in those situations, we're not a husband and wife team in the sense of that meeting, because then that interferes with us being successful at fulfilling that role, to further that mission and to make sure that vision comes to pass. So that's why a lot of boards, they have a limit to the number of family members that can be involved, to avoid those, you know, issues. That's why school districts, I work for a school district, one of the things you have to sign is conflict of interest, nepotism, all those things, because they come into play. Absolutely. And it might be easier to pick someone that you're close with, but if they can't separate and delineate, you know, those responsibilities from who they are in relation, then that becomes more of a hindrance than a help in the long run. So,
that's good.
You know, and oftentimes you don't want a yes person. Sometimes we have people that are family members and they are yes people, or they might be coming in to this role to be helpful, but also for another agenda. So I think you have to treat them like you would treat any person that's not related, or that's not a friend. That this is the role that I want you to fulfill. Are these relationships are going to interfere? Because it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us making sure those roles are fulfilled, and we do it with excellence. So that's what I would say to that.
That's great. And so another question that I received since last week's post was about how personal should board members get? I have a leader that is saying, well, is it appropriate for me to ask the board members out to coffee one-on-one to catch up? Is that appropriate? Is it appropriate to encourage interpersonal relationships? I say it's crucial. It's critical for you to know people. I think we come from a lot of traditions where it's like, oh, it's not personal, and this is business. And I think the world is changing. We talk a lot about millennials and a lot about the social connectedness that's on Facebook, and we like to kind of say that it's not real connections and it's artificial. But I'm here to tell you, Facebook and social media has facilitated a change and a real need for real personal interaction. And I think in the beginning, when I started this video post, I was talking about the emotional revolution and how that's impacting the workplace, that people come to work now and they want to feel fulfilled. Mm-hmm. So the same, they come to your organization, they come to your church, they join your cause. And I have Miss Deborah Spencer's on as well. She leads an amazing organization that's dedicated to her daughter, and I know that she's won a lot of awards. So people see that and they want to be a part of what you're doing, but when they come, they come wanting to also be fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And what better way for you to get in touch with what that person needs out of this experience of being a board member, being a volunteer, than for you to get to know them on a personal level. So can you talk about that more? I think Alex and he's even asked me to coffee, which I'm like, we've been married how many years? You need to take me out to coffee to talk about business? And he would. He's we're kind of type A types. But he'll say, we're going out, we're going to coffee, and this is a business meeting. And he'll ask for the receipt because it's a business meeting. You've got to write it off. And true as can be, it's a business meeting. We're not talking about kids. We're not talking about us. We're not talking about what movie we want to see. We're not talking about vacation. We're talking about the church, or we're talking about a project, mm-hmm. or we're talking about, hey, we need to get on track here. So can you talk about how you as a leader are intentional about building those relationships to make sure that things are working and
Sure.
things are focused?
And I'll address that by mentioning some of the pitfalls. One of the pitfalls, sometimes we pick a board member because they have a skill set. They were a lawyer, or they were an accountant. We want to have a wide representation of skills on a board.
Sure.
That's great, and I've made that mistake of just picking someone based on a title or something they do, but then we miss the most important thing, which is to get to know what their core values are, correct. What drives them, where do they see themselves, how can they help push this vision along. Do they agree with the value set, or they're just signing up to be on the board because it's something they add to a resume? Mm-hmm. Do they have the same kind of a vision, or can they buy into the vision? And I think those are important things to have, that one-on-one time. Say, let's talk. Mm-hmm. Let's sit in front. Let's have a cup of coffee. Let's go to Starbucks. Let's talk about your experiences, what drives you. And I think if we miss that step, then we have more issues on the tail end, trying to get rid of somebody because we thought because they had an MBA, or they were a lawyer, or they were on this board, but their values don't align with our values, and they're not being a help. So I think it's important to, what's the word that people have to, when they have to...
When they're vetted? Or,
yes, we have to vet people. And of course, we have to vet family members even more. Yeah, but we have to vet people because, again, if it's about the organization, if we're answering to people, and I think we also have to think big picture. Oftentimes we start an organization as a small entity, maybe not with a huge budget, maybe with limited resources, and then we try to get people just to get things going. But we have to think big picture, that if this blows up or this is advances, do we want these people, adding value to it? Are they going to be a hindrance to the board? Are they going to help are they going to use their skills, or are they just warming a seat? So I think those are some of the things that from the very start, you set the tone from the beginning. so that anyone that walks in understands this is not, a board where we just sit, and just goof around, or you sit around and just talk policies. We're trying to drive this vision. We're trying to see things advance, and we know, they have your back. It's not trying to get people that are yes people, because you want someone to challenge your thinking. You want someone to have a different viewpoint in terms of helping you to think in a broader sense, of helping you to be more critical. That's fine, but I think when you have a cup of coffee, when you have these social gatherings, one-on-one or together, are they going to be able to work with the other members? Are they one-man shows?
That's right.
Are they doing this for notoriety? You get to the core of, how is this person going to help us? So I think that's crucial.
And I want to add to that too, because I think sometimes people are intimidated if the board member or the volunteer, even if they have their own cause, and you feel like they're going to take your ideas and they're going to try to outdo you. Well, I want to challenge you as a leader to embrace that and say, hey, I see that you posted something on Facebook, or I see that you have a passion for children or for books, or you're doing this project. How can I help you?
Sure.
How can I be a support? If there's a resource that I have that you'd like, if there's something that I can do to be a blessing to you because you're being a blessing to me, let's partner together. Let's set up some time. If you need additional time to just discuss where you are, if you need an accountability partner, I think sometimes offering that help goes a long way, because you can have someone who maybe won't be a long-term board member or volunteer, but you can start building that relationship. That can be a partnership down the line, right? That can be another opportunity for other kinds of involvement and collaboration.
Consultant.
You can be, right, you can be an advisor, consultant to them. So I think, sometimes we live in this dog world, and sometimes we get defensive and we get protective, and a lot of people with some of this theology that says you shouldn't share your vision, you shouldn't let people in, keep your enemies closed, and okay, that's great, but if you're vetting these folks and if you're having these conversations and you see that need, I really encourage you to be a blessing to them and be a help. We know if you believe in sowing and reaping, you know that you're going to reap. If not from that person, definitely from someplace else. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, you mentioned that sometimes we ask folks to come on our board because of what they've accomplished, or the external things. And one of my favorite books for leaders is Leading at the Speed of Trust. The Speed of Trust. The one thing that changes everything. And it talks about trust. This is not a new book, but definitely a must read if you have not read it. And there is a chapter that talks about the 4 cores of credibility. And they start from the bottom. So if you can see this, you see the tree here and the roots. This is what you can't see about a person. And then up here is all the external. So I'm going to read the external parts here. So what we see when we look at a person and we're considering them for a board role, or you're considering them for a leadership role, you see the results, you see their competence, you see their capabilities, and sometimes you get a little bit of intent. And if you notice, that intent is right about here. So really the flourish, the flashy parts that you see are those top 3 there, right? Which is their competency, their results, and their capabilities. You can get this from a resume too, right? From a LinkedIn profile. But what you can't get is character and integrity. And how do you do that? You do that over time.
Yes.
Over time. So Alex, when you and I talked about having this chat with the leaders, you mentioned that time is really important to really see and sense that person's commitment, the person's character. Are they a person of their word? Are they there when they're expected? So can you talk about how do you sift through people that are not going to be committed, people who don't have the character that matches your character and your values, from those who do?
I think your past practice is an indicator of your future. If you want to consider someone to be involved, you should be asking yourself, what have they done in the past?
Mm-hmm.
You know, not just acts of service, but what do you see leadership capabilities? Are they reliable? Are they punctual? Are they about their agenda or your agenda?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't character can take you, much further than talent can ever teach. We see a lot of talented people, but oftentimes where the breakdown is where their integrity and character are lacking.
Sure.
So I think, when picking someone, I think you need to look at the past practice. What have they shown leadership in the other areas? With you don't have to be called a leader to show leadership.
True.
I teach in an elementary school, and I tell all of my students from kindergarten to fifth grade, be a leader. Are you demonstrating? Are you modeling? So you can observe that while watching a person. I can observe that by watching someone sleep before. Mm-hmm. Are they consistent? Are they doing with excellence, with a passion?
True.
You can tell that from anyone. If someone's making coffee, if someone is setting up a table or putting together Excel file, you can see leadership. You can see their passion, their desire. You can see their integrity to make sure that what they put out is their best work. And I think that's a good indicator, because oftentimes we overlook, and I know I'm guilty of this, we overlook people with great integrity for people that have talent.
That's good.
We see the bright shining lights of people's resume and all the things they have accomplished, and yet Johnny or Susie is over in the corner that's been consistent there at every meeting, helped out. Where do you want me to serve? They have that mentality, that servant leadership. So I think we also need to consider that when having board members, because that is so crucial. That picture reminds me of an iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
On the surface, it's one size. If you look under the water, it's monstrous. And I think that that reflects your character. The things we can't see when no one's looking. I tell my students, when I leave the room to talk to a student that's having difficulty and the door's cracked, what are you doing? It's when no one's looking. I can tell my students in a classroom that you're going to follow my direction or do what I tell you to do because you understand the authority, which is inspected. But I'm impressed when those students or those leaders or those individuals do the right thing without me telling them to do it, because they have that initiative, because they have that desire. They see the vision, and they're going to push it further up the road because they care. They're invested. So those are some character. I think character, integrity, those things have to be learned. Some people think they come intrinsically. No.
Sure.
A child has to learn those things. And I think anyone can be trained and taught how to do that, but it's making those crucial decisions to exercise that is going to be a good indicator of a leader.
Sure.
Because any leader is going to have to go through difficult times, have to make crucial decisions, have to budget cuts, or have to deal with people, and what they do in those moments often define them. And everyone makes mistakes, everyone has issues, all of us have challenges, but people look at most your integrity and your character. Mm-hmm. What I can say as a leader, people can say anything they want about me as a leader, but what I can sleep well at night is knowing that my integrity, my character still stands, whether they buy into it or not, whether they want me to cut corners, to make concessions, to do stuff that's not appropriate, to cheat or to advance things. I have to live with myself. And you're looking for a leader that's going to decide, it's important that we stand for something instead of fall for everything.
That's great. And to wrap it up, I want to say, too, that the reason why I do this, the reason why I'm involved with nonprofit, and Alex and I have spent a lot of times with community organizations and churches, The reason why we're in this and we care about this so much is because nonprofits at the very beginning, some of the major issues that you have, it's not volunteers, it's not your vision, it's not your business plan, it's your advisors, it's that support at the top, it's that strategic planning. A lot of you have amazing ideas and you have amazing support and you have funding and you're able to raise money, but the execution of that comes from having the right people making those decisions and having the right people holding you accountable. And we struggle so much. I had a leader who said to me, you know what, I don't even want a board. I have people on paper. I haven't talked to them in 3 years. I haven't interacted. They don't come to meetings. They're not consistent. Well, that explains why the growth is stagnant. You know, you need people, and a lot of us and a lot of leaders think they don't need it. Right? You think, hey, I can do that all by myself, right? I can run this program. I can do the setup. I can speak. I can preach. I can teach. I can teach the kids. I can run the door. I can collect the tickets. And we sort of get into this like I can depend on me, so I don't want to have to depend on someone else, and it doesn't get done. And I think that's a fallacy also for a lot of new nonprofit leaders, new business leaders. So, you know, I love to continue to talk about this, and our time is up, but I think maybe next week we can revisit this and talk about how do you learn to delegate? How do you learn to create a system where you can build other leaders that you can actually rely on? How do you incrementally delegate those responsibilities and test people so that when the time comes for a major event, major situation, major effort, you have those people there for you that you can rely and trust?
Can I?
Absolutely.
So there's a great, biblical analogy how that we are like the body of Christ. And if you think of the body, there are different parts.
Yep.
Now, many times leaders can do all of those things.
Yeah, true.
And they have to be passionate, and they have to, and I was just the same way. I have to learn all these things to make sure that I know what excellence looks at in these different areas.
Right.
But there has to be some point where I have to say, you know what, there is someone better equipped to be able to run with that, and I cannot give 100% of myself in every aspect. If I wanted to move a ball, I can use my fists, I can use my elbow, I can use my knee, I can use my foot, I can use my head. There's so many different parts of the body. But to move that ball the most effective way is the use of my foot. And some of us are trying to be all of those things. When there's a foot, a person in your organization, someone, a volunteer that can push that aspect of your organization farther, but we're holding on to control of everything, from the registration to the program. So it's important that you can assess the abilities of your volunteers and leaders, and also give them the professional development they can be excellent in their area. Oftentimes we just give people responsibilities and things to do, and they say, go do it, but then we don't equip them with the skills, and then we get frustrated as leaders because they're not doing it to the level we want it. We don't give them time to develop. We don't give them the professional development and the resources to do it, and then we take over, and then we're a dysfunctional one-man show. So that's my encouragement, that we think of like the body of Christ. We are different parts. We have different functions. My eye is going to be able to do much more effective than my nose or my mouth, because it has a certain role, and it does that role very well.
That's awesome. So I think for next week, what we'll do is we'll talk about multipliers. This is another book that I've used with my clients on how they can not just, because a lot of you guys, a lot of you leaders, you founders of organizations, you're superstars, you're rock stars. So the idea is, how can we get you to multiply yourself? How can we get you to have this multiplier mentality so that you can not necessarily find the perfect board member? There's no such thing, right? Like that's like the perfect candidate in HR, right? For us, it's like the purple elephant or you know, the purple unicorn. You're not going to find it. But how do you multiply yourself, the way you think, the strategy, your passion, your values? How do you develop that on the leaders that are with you, those leaders that have decided to be a part of your cause? And that's what we're going to talk about next week. So if you don't have this book, I recommend that you have it. I will post it on my page with the link to Amazon so you can order it. Amazing book. We're going to talk about it together. I'll highlight some pieces of the book next week. But I really thank you so much for joining us. I hope that this was a help to you, and I hope that it was a blessing to you. And we will see you again next week at 8:30.